Breaking tonight, Jimmy Kimmel pulled off the air in the U.S. after comments about Charlie Kirk's killing. The ABC network says the late-night show is now preempted indefinitely. The comments and now the fallout. An interest rate cut from the Bank of Canada, the first in months.
There was a clear sense that the balance of risk has shifted.
Why the bank is deciding to act now and what it could mean for Canadians already struggling. And the pomp to go with the protests to welcome Donald Trump to the UK.
This is truly one of the highest honors of my life.
It is a British royal spectacle.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thank you for joining us. 1 week after the killing of Charlie Kirk, the reverberations just keep rumbling when it comes to how Americans are talking about it. Comments online and on air under intense scrutiny, perhaps no more so than in the news breaking tonight. The late-night talk show Jimmy Kimmel Live has been yanked indefinitely. The decision from network broadcaster ABC follows a Kimmel monologue that referenced Kirk, his alleged murderer, and MAGA supporters. The reaction to his comments rolling across a divided U.S., grappling with a raw collision of politics, community values, and free speech. No surprise that the decision is being applauded and criticized. Paul Hunter now with the details of a bombshell development.
Thank you for joining us.
The comments by late-night comedy talk show host Jimmy Kimmel came during his opening monologue Monday.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Kimmel's suggestion that the accused shooter in the stunning killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk this month was a supporter of Donald Trump's MAGA movement and that MAGA backers were trying to politicize it that way brought a near immediate response from the head of the U.S. agency governing broadcasting in America, the Federal Communications Commission, Trump appointee Brendan Carr.
When you look at the conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible.
Carr then added this.
They have a license granted by us at the FCC, and that comes with it an obligation to operate in the public interest. Look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
Now, says ABC, the network that airs Kimmel's show, Jimmy Kimmel Live will be preempted indefinitely. And it's off the air. That followed word from Nexstar, one of the biggest owners of TV stations in the U.S., including those that air Kimmel, that it would no longer air the program. Nexstar's president, Andrew Alford, writing, Mr. Kimmel's comments are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse, and we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of the local communities in which we're located. Says the White House on all of that. They're doing their viewers a favor. Jimmy is a sick freak. And wrote Trump himself on his Truth Social platform, it's great news for America. Congratulations to ABC, he wrote, for finally having the courage to do what had to be done, then encouraging the cancellations of other late-night talk shows as well. As for Kimmel, said CNN media commentator Brian Stelter,
Trump vowed retribution on the campaign trail, and he's getting it. He's getting it against entertainers and comedians.
There's plenty of other reaction to this tonight, Adrian. One free expression group criticized both ABC for caving to pressure on this and as well the FCC for overstepping its mandate in threatening the network. And then there's Democratic Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, who called the pressure put against the Kimmel Show outrageous and indicative of autocracy. He said, this is what dictators do.
And Paul, back to the U.S. president, this wasn't the only thing Donald Trump was posting about tonight.
It certainly was not. After that post on the Kimmel Show, Trump switched subjects to Antifa, the left-wing activist organization in America. I'm going to read you the whole thing, Adrian. I am pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I am designating Antifa, a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster, as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Trump gave no other details, Adrian, including no explanation of what that might mean legally for those associated with Antifa. Quite a night for Donald Trump.
All right, thank you. That's Paul Hunter in Washington. After months of waiting and tracking the economic damage from Donald Trump's tariffs, Canada's central bank has taken action, cutting its key interest rate. The Bank of Canada's benchmark rate has now gone from 2.75 to 2.5%. It is the first change in 6 months, but not a surprise. Unemployment is rising, investment is falling, growth is stalling. The havoc from Trump's chaotic trade war becoming more clear. So while rate cuts risk pushing up prices, as Nisha Patel explains, with the Bank of Canada, inflation is the lesser threat. Its concern, a sputtering economy that needs more oxygen.
After holding steady for months, the Bank of Canada is lowering its key interest rate.
There was a clear sense that the balance of risk has shifted.
Following 7 rate cuts in a row, the central bank had paused back in March to weigh the fallout of tariffs on prices and economic growth. Now it's set the benchmark rate at 2.5%.
With a weaker economy and less upside risk to inflation, Governing Council judged that a reduction in the policy rate was appropriate.
Steep tariffs on autos, steel, and aluminum have crushed exports and business investment. And Canada lost more than 100,000 jobs over the past 2 months.
That's the main reason that the Bank of Canada is cutting rates, to get the economy moving a little bit faster. The bottom line is we should still expect some economic weakness in the quarters ahead.
At this Ontario manufacturer, sales are down 25% this year.
The industry in general is hurting pretty bad. The manufacturing in Canada has really no good stories to tell at this point. So it hasn't gotten any better, long story short. And obviously time is working against us at this point.
President Jonathan Azzopardi is skeptical this rate cut will do much for his business.
It's not going to make anybody, jump out of their seat and start doing investments.
Many variable rate mortgage holders, though, welcome the change. After tightening their belts when interest rates were higher, every cut offers more breathing room.
Anywhere from $50 to $80 will come back, like my mortgage will go down. The economy is not doing good, but definitely it's a relief and every little bit helps.
The central bank says there are still considerable risks to the economy, but wouldn't commit to lowering interest rates again. Many economists say more rate cuts seem likely, though not guaranteed. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, let's bring in senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong. So, Peter, watching Nisha's story, you certainly get the impression there's only so much a rate cut can do.
In the short term, yes, right? Interest rates are a really blunt instrument. They take as much as like 18 months to really work their way into the economy. You need to sort of think of them as scaffolding that goes up around the economy to just help keep it on track, that if businesses and consumers are spending even a little bit less on their debt payments, they've got a little bit extra money, and that can help, and you scale it out across the economy. But remember, this is just the beginning. Most economists believe, we're going to see another 2 cuts between now and March. So this is just dipping our toe into the stimulative waters of interest rate cuts.
Okay, can you broaden out a little bit? Because we saw a similar move from the United States today, but we're talking, 2 different central banks, 2 different economies.
In 2 very different places, right? The U.S. economy, until very recently, hadn't even begun to feel any pain or any damage from the tariffs. The Trump administration says is never going to be, but we are seeing cracks. We are seeing the job market weaken. So the question became, was that pain averted or was it merely delayed? And if it's delayed, there's more yet pain to come down the road for the American economy. And remember, U.S. rates were way higher than they are here in Canada. They've come down to a range of between 4 and 4.25. Here in Canada, they're at 2.5%, so a big difference.
Okay, Peter Armstrong, thank you.
You bet.
Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum is also weathering the U.S. trade war, and she says she wants a closer relationship with Canada.
Lo que hemos platicado es cómo fortalecer el comercio México-Canadá.
What we've discussed is how to strengthen trade between Mexico and Canada as part of the trade agreement, she said. That message comes just ahead of Prime Minister Mark Carney's 2-day visit to Mexico starting tomorrow. Traveling with the Prime Minister will be Evan Dyer. So, Evan, we're talking about top-level personal diplomacy here. Question is, why is this happening right this moment?
Well, there's still a little bit of fence mending to be done with Mexico after some comments from the premiers of Ontario and Alberta following the U.S. election, both of whom suggested that maybe Canada should cut Mexico out and seek a separate deal with the U.S. And those remarks were widely reported in Mexico. They caused a bit of mistrust. So it's unclear whether taking such an approach would protect Canada from tariffs anyway. Now both countries face the renegotiation of the CUSMA Free Trade Agreement next year. So this is a chance to coordinate their negotiating positions and strategies.
Okay, the delegation itself, it isn't just the Prime Minister, right? It includes the CEOs of some of Canada's biggest companies.
That's right. That's right. Both Canada and Mexico want to save North America-wide free trade, but they both know that they can't control what the U.S. does, and tariffs are likely to be there for at least a while. So there's also an effort to grow bilateral trade between Canada and Mexico, which is still tariff-free. And this summer, in fact, Canada imported more cars from Mexico than from the U.S. for the first time in decades. Both countries are interested in creating a trade corridor between them to exchange more goods and also to work together potentially to build products like electrical vehicles for export to markets overseas. Growing direct trade and investment between Canada and Mexico going around the United States is really the second focus of this visit.
Okay, Evan Dyer, thank you.
Thanks, Adrian.
Former Justice Minister David Lametti is leaving his role as Principal Secretary to Prime Minister Mark Carney after just a few months on the job. Sources tell CBC News Lametti is being considered as a possible replacement for Bob Rae as UN ambassador. Sources also say Bill Blair and Jonathan Wilkinson are set to leave for diplomatic posts. Well, in the UK tonight, a lavish royal welcome for U.S. President Donald Trump on his second state visit.
On behalf of all Americans, I offer a toast to one of the great friendships, to two great countries, and to His Majesty.
Trump and King Charles III exchanging praise at a state banquet that capped off a day full of pomp and ceremony. But it was also a day of protest. As Chris Brown shows us, there is fierce criticism of the royal family and the UK government for hosting the president.
As Donald Trump choppered in from his overnight stop in London, waiting at Windsor Castle to greet him was King Charles and Queen Camilla. Prince William and Catherine were there too. In fact, the palace appeared to pull out all of the soft power touches it has. There were carriages, mounted troops, military bands, and as much pageantry as the 1,000-year-old castle's grounds could accommodate. All aimed at appealing to Trump's sense of self-importance.
Dump Trump!
Outside the castle, protesters and a few supporters vied to get their competing messages about his controversial visit across.
I'm staking my life for Trump because it's our son, and we love Trump.
The crowds that marched through London in opposition were far larger.
These protesters don't like Donald Trump, the man, nor what they say are his toxic policies. They say this state visit was a bad idea, and instead the UK should be opposing him.
And the fact that he's here and we're honoring him with a state visit is just beyond my comprehension.
I think it'll inflate his ego even further. He's under some delusion that the world loves him.
The U.S., though, is Britain's most important military ally and its largest trading partner.
You can say that Starmer has managed to maintain good relations with the United States.
Though they're from opposite sides of the political spectrum, this professor says Prime Minister Keir Starmer has so far succeeded at keeping Trump on side.
We, of course, got what we call a trade deal, which is basically a piece of paper that implies we're going to have lower tariffs than the European Union. I think Starmer will probably be quite happy with what he's had to date.
This unique and important occasion reflects the enduring bond between our two great nations.
The day ended with the King toasting Trump at a state dinner and Trump returning the praise.
But this is truly one of the highest honors of my life.
Lots could still go wrong. This day was about spectacle. Thursday is for business. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
The RCMP in Nova Scotia have arrested and charged a man accusing him of decades of abuse at a youth correctional facility. He taught swimming there for nearly 30 years. And as Kayla Hounsell tells us, investigators say he harmed hundreds of young people.
This is where youth in Nova Scotia often come to be rehabilitated when they get into trouble with the law. Now the man who taught many to swim here is facing charges himself.
It's good news. It should have been done a long time ago.
Ghanem Harb says he was around 16 or 17 when he was at the facility. He didn't like the swim instructor.
When he'd help you learn how to swim, that was the worst because, his hands would move in different directions under the water and it was just disgusting.
Now that instructor is facing dozens of charges.
This instructor held a position of authority, and the young people he victimized should have been able to trust him and feel safe with him.
The RCMP says Donald Douglas Williams is facing 66 sex-related charges, with more expected. The allegations have not been tested in court. Williams was the swim instructor here from 1988 to 2017. Police believe he abused more than 300 young people, mostly boys.
To date, we've interviewed hundreds of survivors and witnesses across Canada. We've reviewed over 9,800 seized documents, totaling more than 740,000 pages.
Harb is not part of the police case, but he is part of a class action lawsuit against the province.
That type of troubled background creates a degree of vulnerability. It allows institution or surrounding staff to sort of, doubt the validity of contemporaneous allegations. We don't believe you because of who you are.
Nova Scotia's Justice Minister says her department is cooperating with the investigation.
That's supposed to be a place where we're supposed to be rehabilitated, not ruined. And that's exactly what it did. It just ruined a bunch of us.
He wants the man he says hurt him when he was an incarcerated youth to wind up behind bars himself for a long time. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
There are new concerns tonight in Alberta about the government's plan to put a Canadian citizenship marker on driver's licenses. The province's privacy commissioner says her office hasn't been given any details and can't assess the potential impact. Julia Wong with more on the big change set for next year.
After a meeting with business leaders on Wednesday, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said she's confident in her government's plan to put a Canadian citizenship marker on driver's licenses and ID cards, despite criticism of the move.
I'm sure we'll be able to work through it.
Licenses of Canadian citizens will have a CAN sign. Those of non-citizens will have no marking. Alberta would be the only province to make it mandatory. But the province's Information and Privacy Commissioner tells CBC News she has questions.
I would be asking government about why this piece of information should be added to the driver's license to assess whether or not the privacy risks are outweighed by the benefits.
McLeod's office is supposed to analyze this kind of change, but says she hasn't received any details.
Is just one more piece of information that somebody could use for nefarious related purposes.
The Premier says part of the reason is to ensure social services get to those entitled to them.
They're very costly, expensive services that we have to make sure that we're prioritizing those who are Canadian citizens first.
Those who work with newcomers have concerns.
It gives us an opportunity to have prejudices and tensions and other types of conflict injected into situations where they don't belong.
Smith also says the change will help ensure election integrity. Not a significant issue in Alberta, says this political expert.
So it does kind of seem like at this point, some of the stuff that comes from the United States over election fraud and questioning elections is starting to make its way north of the border.
Outside this license registry, some confusion.
Just seems like something maybe unnecessary to know.
I don't see the point.
The Information and Privacy Commissioner says it isn't clear the province is allowed to collect citizenship information. The plan is set to roll out late next year. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
There's new evidence tonight that the spike in heat waves this summer weren't a fluke.
Climate change is reshaping the odds of daily weather in Canada.
The impacts across the country and the hardest hit areas. A wrong-way driver on Canada's busiest highway.
Anyone in their right mind would never do something like that.
What police are saying about the person behind the wheel. And a rare encounter with a herd of seahorses.
It didn't take me too long to start screaming for them.
We're back in 2. A terrifying close call on Canada's busiest highway earlier this month. Police say a driver going the wrong way on the 401 sideswiped several cars and crashed into a light post west of Toronto. He was arrested after running away from the scene. Police are investigating if he was impaired.
A vehicle going highway speeds, swerving between traffic, into oncoming lanes, absolutely dangerous. Anyone in their right mind would never do something like that.
Remarkably, no one was injured. The 21-year-old driver is facing some serious charges, including dangerous driving and failing to remain at the scene of a collision. Well, new research shows extreme heat is hitting the world harder and more often, with climate change driving the surge. Anand Ram shows us the impact on Canadians.
Heat waves are hitting Canadians hard this summer from coast to coast to coast. Now, new research shows they were made more likely because of climate change.
Our analysis for this past summer looked at heat waves across Canada.
Heat waves when daily temperatures shot well above the regional average. Most were made more likely by climate change. The strongest heat wave they looked at was in Atlantic Canada, where temperatures soared beyond what's typical in August, and that one was made 10 times more likely because of global warming. Research like this models a world without climate change and lets scientists figure out how much of an impact it's having.
Some of that is natural, but climate change is loading the dice.
In another new study, the U.S. nonprofit Climate Central looked at days where temperatures also soared above what's typical and found that Canadians went through 39 risky heat days.
We defined risky heat as being heat that is hotter than 90% of the temperatures you typically experience in your local area.
And Canadians went through 2 more weeks of those risky heat days because of climate change.
The big message here is clear. Climate change is reshaping the odds of daily weather in Canada, and people feel it most directly through extreme heat.
The greatest risk of extreme heat is for seniors, children, and people on medication or who have underlying health concerns. But it's also dangerous for anyone forced to stay in that heat.
What is their ability to adapt in this situation? And that includes having air conditioning, having a job where even if they're in the heat, are able to get out of the heat through policies that protect outdoor workers.
And as the world burns more fossil fuels, adding to climate change, it means the chances of these multiple heat wave summers could go from rare to regular. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
A Nova Scotia woman has won a 6-year fight to get a life-changing surgery.
Feeling hopeful for the first time in a long time.
Her journey to finally getting the care she needs. Homeless encampments torn down across an Ontario city.
Coming to me, I'm to you.
What led to this escalation? The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. In British Columbia, a partnership has formed aimed at taking advantage of a large, sustainable supply of seaweed. Lindsay Duncombe on the wide-ranging uses already discovered and the work being done to get to the next level.
These researchers are harvesting potential off the coast of Vancouver Island.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
This is bull kelp, 10 meters of slimy, strong, economic possibility.
We are just scratching the surface on our understanding of seaweed. There are so many different products and compounds within the seaweeds that we have yet to discover.
This used to be an industrial salmon farm, but it was closed down in 2021. So the Wewecum First Nation and North Island College turned it into a seaweed research farm.
They're a sea vegetable, so they're a sustainable food source. We can eat them, animals can eat them. It can be turned into fertilizer. The end uses are really limitless.
Seaweed can also be used for pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, even construction. These Vancouver entrepreneurs are measuring how well seaweed works in acoustic panels, panels used to block noise in restaurants and office buildings. There's a patent pending on their product and a wait list to buy them.
The goal for us isn't to make just a product. It's to make a product that's good for the planet and that's good for humans and that's useful to us.
For all of the possibilities, there is some concern that moving to a more industrial seaweed harvest could do more harm than good. No one expects British Columbia to ever have the scale of seaweed farms you see in Asia, with their huge environmental footprint and low labor costs. But the David Suzuki Foundation warns an expanded industry could have negative effects on the ocean. That's why the Wew'wachum First Nation isn't introducing any new species at its kelp farm, just planting more of what was already there. The chief sees potential.
It produces a product that we're proud to stand behind, that it's responsible socially, environmentally, and it's employing our people.
And of course, it has to make money. Much of this research is currently funded by governments. The hope is that investors will see potential too, to scale up sustainably. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, north of Campbell River.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. A state of emergency in one Ontario city dealing with homelessness.
We are having the type of violent crime happening that's been happening inside and around these encampments.
When the encampments come down, where do its residents have left to go? But first,
hopeful for the first time in a long time, actually.
After a 6.5-year fight for her life, a Nova Scotia woman finally got her life-changing out-of-country surgery. Angela McIver follows Jennifer Brady's journey from living with chronic pain to finding new hope in a New Jersey hospital.
To get through all of the turmoil that it took to get here was really difficult because it felt for so long like it wasn't going to happen. So now being at this point, it's still, there's a part that still feels surreal. The whole thing feels surreal. Thank you.
For Jennifer Brady, this marks the turning point in a 6-year fight for her life. She's headed to New Jersey for surgery paid for by the Nova Scotia government, something health officials tried to prevent and even fought in court.
It's been a constant battle to get here. That just felt like there was constantly new hoops to jump through.
We've been following Brady for the last year. She has lymphedema, a chronic disease that causes extreme fluid buildup.
Commonly, it's as a result of breast cancer surgery or gynecological cancer surgery, which is what happened in my case. So I had cervical cancer. I was diagnosed in late 2018, and then in May of 2019, I had what's called a radical hysterectomy. So they remove your cervix to rid you of the cancer. But as part of that, just like they do with breast cancer surgery, they remove lymph nodes.
When Brady's lymph nodes were removed, it messed up her lymphatic system and caused major swelling in her legs. To manage it, she's been wearing high-grade compression stockings and spending up to 6 hours a day in this inflatable suit, not able to move. The whole time, her mental health slowly eroding.
My nurse practitioner tried me on 5 different antidepressant medications, and they all almost immediately caused my leg to swell up considerably. So I had to stop taking those. It greatly impacts, my kids in a big way. That's probably one of the hardest parts, is just watching my kids watch me have to go through this, and the pain that it causes, and my inability to do things, and then the burden and responsibility that falls to them.
Through it all, she kept pushing for out-of-province care and getting denied. The reason? She didn't have a referral from a Nova Scotia doctor specializing in lymphedema. But at the time, there wasn't a single doctor in the province who did. In May of last year, the single mother of 2 couldn't take it anymore. She applied for medical assistance in dying.
It's hard to imagine that I'm at that point, and I think probably most people looking at me would not think that I'm as sick as I am, or as sick as, getting to a point that I'd apply for MAID. The impact of the disease, though, as I kind of mentioned, is like it's taken away. I'm living I'm living a half of my life or a quarter of the life that I used to be able to lead. You know, it's like I said, it's taken away everything that I enjoy, things that are meaningful to me.
She became so frustrated she even interrupted Tim Houston's election rally.
I have a life-threatening health condition that I have petitioned your government, including Minister Thompson, over and over again.
Then Brady and another woman found out they won a judicial review. The judge called their denials of care unreasonable, prompting the Premier to step aside from his campaign last November to publicly apologize.
On behalf of the province, I want to apologize to them. No Nova Scotians should have to go through what they went through, so we're really sorry on behalf of all Nova Scotians that this happened to them. We take the decision very seriously. There'll be no appeal.
Part of me feels like I want to celebrate, but another part of me feels like, you know, how do you celebrate a win when the battle has cost so much? So I don't know how to celebrate that.
It was only after she received a settlement in January and was approved for a consult in New Jersey that Brady's mindset began to shift, and she started making plans for the future with her children.
It's a day at the beach with my kids. That is, you know, to have that on the horizon is enormous.
The long-awaited surgery finally became real in mid-July when Brady made the trip to New Jersey. The cost of getting here, along with the procedure itself, all paid for by the provincial government. When it came to traveling between medical appointments and meals, though, she was on her own.
So even once you jump the hoops of getting approved and getting somewhere for care, God help you once you get there, because it's really expensive. Hi. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
At the same time, she is grateful to receive a level of care she didn't think existed.
Hey, Jennifer.
So nice to see you.
It's so good to see you.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing? Please have a seat.
Dr. Joseph Diane is a world expert in lymphedema care based in New Jersey. He's doing procedures every week that don't occur in Nova Scotia and are rare in the rest of Canada.
These treatments are managing the symptoms, and that's why ultimately we're doing the surgery.
Each month, Dr. Diane sees lymphedema patients from all over North America and as far away as the Middle East.
Nobody was taking care of these patients. And then when I looked in medical school, there's no specialty. It's a huge hole in medicine. And so from an intellectual side, it was very exciting to me to be able to maybe make a contribution and figure out this puzzle. From a human side and personal side, in my heart, it was very personal to me to be able to help patients that are turned away, that fall through the cracks.
Hey, how are you?
Brady hasn't been alone in her struggle. Crystal Ellingson fought alongside Brady in the court battle. She has a condition called lymphedema and also had to go abroad for surgery. Ellingson recently moved from Halifax to North Carolina. They continue to support each other.
How was your appointment? My appointment was really good. I got to see Dr. Diane, and he just always makes me feel so calm because he's just so, he's calming and reassuring, and he's lovely.
Having professionals who can help you manage your condition, it's a game changer. So I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
The night before surgery, Brady doesn't want to admit how she's actually feeling.
A little bit of game face, and I need that right now. So, yeah, I guess excited is the only thing I can come up with because that is helping the game face.
It doesn't hit her until she walks into the hospital. This is finally happening. Dr. Diane does a lymph node transplant. He takes small glands from her armpit and transfers them to her lower leg. It all goes smoothly. Hours later, she records herself in recovery.
But yeah, feeling pain-free for sure, and pretty good. The nurses have been great.
and I think just hopeful for the first time in a long time, actually. I think I'm just realizing that now.
After just a few weeks, Brady is now home in Halifax, moving around better than expected. She no longer needs that massage machine. It's packed up in the corner, and she's able to laugh.
You know, it's funny because I've always been a fighter. So I think in some ways it hasn't changed me. It's just confirmed what everyone already knew, which is I'm stubborn, I'm persistent. You know, I don't say this in a mean way, but like they kind of messed with the wrong person, you know.
Brady plans to keep pushing government so others can access out-of-province care, but she's also ready to start letting go of the anger. She no longer wants to die.
I feel much more hopeful for a life going forward that is one that is meaningful to me. It's really scary thinking and looking back that I was in such a dark place, that I was contemplating that.
She never wanted to leave her children. So dreaming of spending a day at the beach with them, and now actually doing it, allows some of that pain to wash away.
The harsh reality is there is actually no cure for lymphedema. This will be a lifelong battle for Brady. But as she mentioned there, Adrienne, she's already feeling better both physically and emotionally.
And that matters. I'm really curious what the provincial government is saying about her case now.
Yeah, well, both the Premier and the Health Minister declined an interview, but in a statement, a spokesperson says that complex cases are now being reviewed differently, and also the Auditor General here in Nova Scotia is reviewing how out-of-province care is handled, all a direct response to this fight for care.
Okay, well, thank you for staying on this. That's Angela McIver in Halifax. Coming up, in a city under a state of emergency over homelessness, some wisdom from the streets.
It can happen to anybody. It can happen to me, happen to you. All it takes is one bad moment.
The view from the margins, next. Housing crisis so entrenched that one Ontario city declares a state of emergency.
The violence, the drug dealing, the criminality is real.
As encampments are dismantled, those who call them home now have nowhere to go.
I feel like we're just being moved out of sight, out of mind. Society that's, doesn't want to see us homeless.
Shortly after the city of Barrie in Ontario declared its state of emergency, Nick Purdon traveled there to meet the people being pushed farther into the margins, and a warning: this story contains some coarse language.
I arrive in Barrie, Ontario, as they're getting rid of this homeless encampment in the downtown. This spot had grown to be the most visible encampment in the city. The city's mayor just declared a state of emergency because the homelessness crisis became violent. But will that change anything? The last tent standing belongs to Bruce and Shayna.
What would you say to people who say we need to clear these people out?
If they were going through it, they'd be thinking a lot differently. And they'd be looking at it a lot differently if they went through it themselves.
Shayna is 32. She's packing and trying to keep track of all their things, even as everyone watches.
Shayna, what is it that people don't understand about you or people who live in encampments in this country?
They don't understand how hard it is, the struggle, living outside and not having a shower or food to eat on a regular basis or a place to store the food or any of it.
Shayna and Bruce say they were told that the city will find them a temporary place to stay.
We don't want to be in shelters. We want to be able to have our own places, our own homes, our own independence.
What do you think about this idea that they call the state of emergency?
It's not a state of emergency. I feel like we're just being moved out of sight, out of mind. Society that's, doesn't want to see us homeless, appease them, right? But in the end, if they don't find us a place, I guess we're back into a tent.
Bruce and Shayna have been living on the streets of Barrie for a couple of years.
Bruce and I are just struggling through life right now, so.
You guys are gonna help each other, I guess?
100%. We have been this far.
When you look over here and there's like all these police and they've got a front end loader and they're putting the tents in the garbage and that, what do you think about?
It frustrates the hell out of me. I think it's a fucking joke that these people go home and sleep well at night doing this to people, then having no second thought about it. So, yeah.
What people in this city can't forget is this past summer there was a double murder at one of the other encampments. 45-year-old William Robinson and 41-year-old Kyle Cheesequay were found dead and dismembered in the tent where they lived.
The police came in, you can see the yellow tape over here.
Barrie Mayor Alex Nuttall shows me where the encampment used to be.
This is an area where the person who's accused was residing.
What made you call the state of emergency?
When folks are showing up dismembered, when we are having the type of violent crime happening that's been happening inside and around these encampments, the violence, the drug dealing, the criminality is real.
What does calling a state of emergency say about the situation you're in right now in
It's
your
dire.
mind and Barrie?
It's dire. It's dire. I mean, like, how could it be more dire than people just getting killed and dismembered and nobody knowing about it?
The mayor says to get rid of encampments, there has to be more affordable housing.
I grew up in government housing here. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, quite frankly, was that we weren't on the street because we were able to have a housing unit in project housing. That was the last really large housing project that was built in the city of Barrie, and I grew up in '94. So that tells you all you need to know. We haven't kept up. We haven't invested in housing for those who are less fortunate in our city.
The mayor tells me that while affordable housing is finally being built in Barrie, it's years away. So that doesn't help Bruce and Shayna today. So what are they going to do? Are they going to come and take this down with a bulldozer kind of thing?
No, this will be left. So we're going to take this down.
Oh, you're going to take it down and take it with you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're putting all our stuff into storage.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Before Bruce finishes packing up his last things, I wonder if there's something we can learn from him. Tell me what it is that got you to this point where you're living here in this tent.
I worked all my life, went to college, worked at Blackberry, worked at the college, and then, I came here and got in an accident, got hit and run. That changed my life, I didn't ask for this.
Did that get you into painkillers and that kind of thing?
100%, yeah. You can't blame it all on the doctors, but yeah.
And are you saying that this could basically happen to anybody?
100% it can happen to anybody.
What do you mean?
It can happen to anybody. It can happen to me, happen to you. All it takes is one bad moment
and you could end up like this.
I did the best I could under the circumstances.
Bruce and Shayna stay and clean up all around what was their home. And then finally they leave, not really knowing what's next, or even where they might sleep tonight.
Now, Barrie's mayor wrote to Ontario's premier this week, calling on the province to take immediate action to help the city address the crisis. He is urging Doug Ford to visit Barrie to see for himself the challenges posed by the homeless encampments. Up next, pretty magical close encounter near Peggy's Cove.
Just felt very overwhelmed. I cried a lot into my snorkel.
How she found herself hanging out with almost a dozen seahorses. Now, of all the things and all the places, you're looking at an encounter with a seahorse near Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia. And not one, but a cluster of 11 seahorses. This is not at all typical there. Those little fellas usually like shallow, warm, tropical water, don't we all? And tonight, a snorkeling surprise makes our moment.
I was puzzled and amazed. I also just felt very overwhelmed. I cried a lot into my snorkel. We were snorkeling at Paddy's Head, which is a popular local dive site, which is very near Peggy's Cove. I've never heard of anyone encountering in this area 11 seahorses in one day. I was with my 2 friends, and when I saw the seahorse, I was all by myself. And it didn't take me too long to start screaming for them. This one was just rising up out of the grass, but when Cassie and Perry came over to check it out, I started noticing that they were hanging on all the plants that were floating by. Almost every single plant had a seahorse on it. There was one that was just swimming across the surface, and it just came right in front of me like this. It was so exciting that I just developed so much adrenaline, and I felt like I had 50 coffees. I couldn't sleep for 3 days.
They are so cute, and they, in a way, they kind of look like little dragons, if you know what I mean. Their tails allow them to sort of cling to coral or seaweed so that they can rest, because they're pretty slow swimmers, and they've even been known to hang on to each other so they don't lose their mates. From all of us at The National, thanks for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.